Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fox's Den. It's Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, which means it's time for some exciting content. And today, look, we're in January. We have to talk about transfers, even though there's been hardly anything incoming. We've had one, we've had two go out. So let's talk a bit more about some potential incomings. I can guarantee you in a week's time, we're going to look back on this video and say we signed none of them. But anyway, we've got to fill the time with something. So here we go. Before we get into it, Anil, mate, what's going on? How you doing, pal?
All good. Fingers crossed for the transfer window. We need a few players, but we're out the relegation zone. It's in our own hands. Come on top. Let's do it.
Yeah, it is in our own hands. I can't believe we're saying that in January, but there we go. Josh, mate, Sports, what's going on? You right, mate?
Yeah, all good. Good to be on it after a win for the first time in what's felt like forever. And it's we got the win. Now hopefully we can get some signings, just like Anil said.
Yeah, Manny, mate. You were missing for a month. You're back, and now we can't get rid of you, mate. You're just here, there, and everywhere now. What's going on, mate?
Like a bad smell, huh? Yeah, look, pleased after 3 points. Been a while. We've been sucking it up for a while. Good to get that going into the last week of the window, but the last week of the window is a very big week. Make no mistake.
Yeah, and after mine and Anil's discussion the other night, saying whether Manny is the Edward or Daka of BTG, someone in the comments pointed out to us he's actually the Frank Worthington, apparently. So there we go.
Ooh. And did you know, I checked Frank Worthington on ChatGPT, and it said a player full of charisma. Whatever. Take that for you.
There we go. There we go.
My mate also described him as a drunk and a womanizer, but
it sounds very accurate to me then on all three of them.
No.
There we go. Maybe 10 years ago, Manny. Maybe 10 years ago.
I met the wife then.
Scott, let's see. Everybody let us know that you're in the chat if you are watching. Kunal says, evening, guys. Same from Matt. Scott says, we need bodies, can't be less effective than Daka. We will get into that. Zaid, evening. Hope everyone's doing great. Ray says, Josh, loved your vlog from Sunday. Cheers, absolutely. Matt says, massive game Saturday and transfer window. Andreas says, evening, guys. And then, of course, he's always here. The Nottingham Forest fan, Tommy K, is in the chat as well. And Clipper. All right, so earlier today, I sent all three of you a list of 5 players that Leicester City have been linked with in some way, shape, or form over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to talk about them 5 players. And Anil, Mr. Stato, Mr. Analytical Genius himself, has come up with a lovely presentation, as always. So we're going to bring that up as well. And then we can get straight into it. So the first player, lads, I'll let you introduce him, Anil. Go on, mate.
Sure. So the first player, we're going to go with one that Lox has put on the thumbnail. He's already getting comments. It is Chuba Akpom. So who is Chuba Akpom? Let's have a look. Well, some things that have interested you. He used to play for Middlesbrough. He was actually Middlesbrough's Player of the Season. He won the Championship Player of the Season award the year that we got relegated to the Championship. We'll come to that in a moment. And he got signed by Ajax as a result of that season. And they obviously have then gone to replace him with Emmanuel Latela, who's someone else we have actually been linked to. Now, what's interesting about him is that for Ajax, you can see that he actually plays quite a number of positions, right? So versatility. You could also say that means he's not that good in any of the positions, but I'm just giving you the facts as you see. He mainly plays as a striker, but he can also play as a left winger, a right winger, or even as an attacking midfielder. So versatility there. Now, speaking of, here's his history. He's currently at Ajax. You can see that even though Ajax aren't doing particularly well at the moment compared to their pomp in yesteryear, he has scored goals for them. He got, 14 last season. This season, he's only on 4, so it doesn't look like he's being used as much as some of the other ones. But you can see in red there, I've got a season at Middlesbrough. 28 goals he got, 2 assists, Championship Player of the Season. That's the same amount as Sami Šmodić, so obviously make of that what you will. But I do think winning the Championship Player of the Season award, you can think about what sort of level he is. The current one is Crescencio Somerville. And you've also got Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. They haven't really made it at their new clubs, but they were very good for their old clubs. So maybe that's something to do with your level. So what we're also going to do, we're going to try this on Fox's Den for the first time, is we're going to play some videos of the footage whilst we talk about the player. And I believe because this is, highlight reels and stuff like that, it means we're not going to get penalised for it. So I think we can talk about it and watch the action. I think this is like the best way to sort of talk about the players. But just before I probably pass it over to Manny, who's probably going to crap all over Chuba Akpom, I would say that if you look at him, well, look at this sort of action here, right? He's fast, he can hold up the ball, and he was actually what Michael Carrick did with him, and you're seeing it here in these clips, is that he actually turned him into more of a second striker stroke false nine than being the main man. So what he's particularly good at is getting it under pressure, holding it up, and then playing it and linking in other players. And that tactical move, this guy was very interesting about his career. He even spent time at PAOK in Greece, PAOK, right? So his career's been all over the place. He started at Arsenal, a bit like Mavididi, and then Carrick is the one that made him shine. And of course, he played for Ajax. It's look here, you see that he's held up the ball under pressure and played it over. So I'm going to pass it over to the other guys, but you got the clips I'm talking about. What do you think about Chuba Akpom? I believe would be interested on loan.
Yeah, but I want to send it to Manny first because I've already spoken to him briefly off air. Manny talks a good game about what types of signings Leicester should make. So what's your views on this one, mate?
Guy's had one good season his entire career. That's it. One good season. He got hot for one streak like Tammy Abraham. One good season, not a consistent goal scorer. We don't use a false nine. We don't want to play with his back to goal. Iheanacho served a similar role playing off Vardy. We could never find a space for him in the team. It never really worked. What's the difference here? He's 29, no resale value, no investment in potential, no player who's going to get better than he's ever shown in his career. Avoid. This is the kind of
what if it's a loan, Manny?
Well, we could get better on loan. We've only got 2 loan slots left. We try these old guys, Bertrand, Vestergaards, Cody's, Premier League experience or playing in the English game experience or whatever. There's no excitement with this player. It's not going to deliver anything X factor. His strike rate in Holland is like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. So what's his strike rate going to be in the Premier League? It's just not the player we're looking for.
Well, I mean, Manny, you say that he's had one good season. I mean, so he scored, what was it, 28 2 years ago, and then last season it was 14.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an awful return, Manny, no?
14,
for a loan signing, and if we could get better as a striker on loan, who is better?
What does 14 in 30 plus in Eredivisie translate to into Premier League? If you want to be elite in the Premier League, then you should be scoring a goal a game in that league. So fair enough, we don't expect a goal a game. We're not getting the very best players from that league, but you'd want at least 1 in 2, for us to even consider looking at him. And even then, 29, Championship, no one's ever really taken a gamble on him for a very good reason. I don't see where the excitement here is. And it's just another player we're going to have similar to Daka or Edouard or all these other guys. A very similar standard in player, but we need something that potentially is going to be above that. It might happen, it might not. I prefer a gamble than prefer something that's just going to be a bit meh. And I'm sorry to use that word, but that's the best way I can describe it. Meh.
Go on, Josh, mate. Take it away. What are your thoughts on Chuba Akpom?
Yeah, I see where Manny's coming from. Look, I don't think in an ideal world we could obviously look for someone better, but at this point in the window, is it the worst of options? I don't think he's going to set the world alight. I'm not saying he's going to replace Vardy, but in terms of an option, if we can get him on loan for 6 months or whatever, potentially and see what he does. I think he offers more than Daka, than Edouard, obviously. So depends on his wages, obviously, stuff like that. But I don't think he's an awful striker. I know he's been very hit and miss, but some strikers suddenly have one good season, they can just turn like that. So I think it would be a bit of a gamble. I think there's better options out there, but are Leicester shopping in the market where we can get them better players? I don't think we are. So just from watching his highlights, albeit it's just highlights. Everyone looks good in the highlights, but he looks all right holding the ball up. We saw Vardy, who's come deep at times to try and hold the ball up and give it back. So I think there's an option there potentially for Ruud van Nistelrooy to use him. But I think for me, if you just look at the time left and the strikers available out there, the funds we have, the loan deals, etc., I don't think there's much better we could probably get overall.
And Neil, this is where I'm at with it, mate. I think he is different to what we have at the moment. And I think that he might actually suit Ruud van Nistelrooy's the type of football that he wants to play. I know Vardy's done okay at it, but I would go as far as saying that this guy, not a better goal scorer than Vardy, but maybe he would suit the system a bit more.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, listen, I think if it was like a permanent, absolutely not. But I mean, someone's put in a comment, and I think they're right. Like, beggars can't be choosers. And I know, to be honest with you, though, because I do remember with the Edouard one, we were like, "Are you hyped for him?" No, but it's better to sign the striker than not have anyone at all, because otherwise we're not going to have one. And as it turns out, actually, you could argue that Edouard's held us back this window, which is the one thing we didn't really take into account, that we might have had to sign someone else later on in the season. That, of course, isn't the case this time around. This time it's it's a signing or nothing. So I think it depends. But looking at the clips, the thing that is very different about him is I could actually 100% see how he'd fit into the team. Like, you've noticed it quite recently with Rude. We like to go long to try and bypass the press sometimes and have some physical players up there that can win the ball, bring it down and link other people into play. And literally pretty much half the clips that you're seeing here as we're talking is you'll see him doing that, right? That's going to help get Bilal Kanouse into the game. It's going to help get your other attacking wide men into the game. So I think that's very useful. I think he can finish. He was playing under Carrick when he was pressing, so he's used to the high intensity. I don't know. Of course, it's a gamble, but I think if it's a loan signing with just a loan fee, I don't think it's the worst. I think it is interesting, though. You can see that the other clubs that have been linked with him are either, I think Wolves have been linked, and I think someone's mentioned it in chat as well, Sunderland. So you can see probably the level that he's at. He's either top end of the Championship or bottom end of the Premier League. But currently, that's where we are. So I don't know. Of course, if there's someone better that we're linked with, but I don't really see too many other ones, used to the English game. And I think as well that these sort of signings, when they come in, they need to hit the ground running, right? They haven't got time to develop, right? They really... A player that you sign on loan now, it could be that they only score 2 goals and those 2 goals keep you up, kind of thing, right? So for me, not the worst. And this is actually the sort of player that I think I would expect us to get. I don't think we're going to go for like a premium one. And I think he could be decent. But like I said, I thought Edouard would have a bigger impact than he has, and he's done absolutely nothing.
So going round, obviously all 4 of us, I just want, a very brief answer. Would you, on the basis that it would be a loan for 6 months and where we are in the league, would you sign or would you avoid a nil?
I would actually sign based on the fact that there's no other options. I can't see if there's no other options available. I think he would be better to have in the squad than not. And as shown in that first picture, the multiple positions, I think is the one that does that for me. Versatility.
Money?
Massively avoid. We've got 2 limited loan signings, and put yourself in Van Nistelrooy's position. You are not going to drop your captain and talisman and crowd favourite and King Shithouse merchant in Jamie Vardy in a relegation battle for Chuba Akpom, who's come over for 6 months on loan. What message does that send, that your permanent players are all getting benched for a guy you just got in through the door 5 minutes ago on loan? That is not good for squad morale. The guy ends up on the bench. So it's end up being a wasted loan signing. I would rather utilise those 2 limited foreign loan signings for potential first teamers, because we need surgery elsewhere more than we do at striker, in my opinion.
I mean, Manny, if we're here on deadline day, mate, or if we're here on the 4th of February and the window's shut and we've not signed anyone, well, surely then you would say, okay, well, he would have been better than no one, right? Like, surely.
With several days to go, I still think that there is other options out there in different days. Obviously, if it literally is 10 minutes to 11 and there's nothing else on the table, then fine. But we need defenders, we need wingers, we need other positions too. That we do have 2 loan slots. Don't waste your loan slot on a guy who in the real world will end up on the bench, because he will.
Josh, loan 6 months, are you saying sign or avoid, mate?
I'd sign him on loan for 6 months, to be fair. Even if he isn't the first choice striker, we saw Vardy, he played back-to-back games, Fulham Palace, he was knackered. So I just think we need an option, and in my opinion, Daka and Edouard don't provide that simply. So yeah, I'd take him, but nothing longer than a loan.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I would say sign him for 6 months on a 6-month loan. Although I did see a tweet earlier that there is a private jet that came over from Amsterdam to Tyneside or up north earlier today. So maybe he's on his way to Sunderland. I know that he is heavily linked with Sunderland. So there we go. Just a couple comments in the chat. Just see what people are saying. With the spaces available in the squad, defenders are an absolute priority. Funny enough, we have one defender to talk about tonight. We need versatility, and he brings it. Could confuse defenses with his versatility. If he is good in the air, with him being physical, it might help us win the ball from a goal kick and start an attack rather than constantly lose it. Ahmed says, and who we signing, Manny? Tell us. Don't want panic buys. Remember Beckford. Remember Edouard, of course. That was more recent. And finally, Akpom's interesting. He's a good threat to assist our attack. That could do Ayew's role, but better. But I'd just loan him in as last resort, not buy him. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to our. I mean, on the whole, sorry, Manny, but I think this one is a buy. On the vote, or not. Loan, not buy. But on to the next one, Anil, and talk us through it, mate.
Yeah, hold on. Let me go. So the next one on our list is a defender, and it is Strahinja Pavlovic. So this is a centre back, left-footed centre back that currently plays for Milan. He moved there just in the summer from Red Bull Salzburg. We signed a player from that club once. Hasn't worked out too well, but don't let that put you off of it. So actually, with Akpom, I couldn't really find that much data. For whatever reason, on FB Ref, it wouldn't let me do player comparisons. But for this one, there's a lot of data available. So we'll come to that in a moment. But as always, I'll play this. And I've got to say, the very first thing you're going to see in this video is really, really good. I absolutely love it. So let's see. This is actually from the official Red Bull channel, Salzburg. They made this for him as he left, which I think is indicative. So you can see he's pretty quick. I'm just going to turn off the subs. Look at that. That's a left-sided centre-back, by the way. bit pissed off. I'll tell you what, let me just... I'll play it again 1 second. I just want to make sure, for whatever reason, the subs are on here. I'll play it again.
We're already getting a lot of comments saying he will not come to Leicester City. I mean, that's
possibly true. But... I think you're going to have this dodgy music. Sorry about this.
We can't hear it, mate. It's all right. We can't hear it.
Yeah. But you got the words putting in. But I mean, for me, I think this is a top-class player. Look at this. Look at the pace he's got. That's the biggest thing, right? Is that in our team, in the back four, we got very slow players. I think it's definitely one of the reasons why we signed Koulibaly. And, being Serbian, you've got that sort of hard bastard attitude to you as well. So can see why we're interested. But I think it's fair for people to say it's not, but you never know. I mean, if Milan, they've just signed Kyle Walker themselves at the back, right? He's going to be on high wedge. So even if it's just covering the wages, something to be said there. But tall, fast, left-footed.
What we need, mate, isn't it? Just what we need. I mean, Manny, talk to me on this one, mate. I'm sure you've done a little bit of research on him. I personally, I think it would be a great signing. I actually think he is very, very, very unlikely not to come because I think he is a level above where we are at the moment. But yeah, Manny, talk to me.
I like this one a lot. This one's fantastic. He's mobile, he's big, he's strong, he's aggressive to the ball. He likes to, his timing's good on challenges. He seems to have a bit of an eye for going forward occasionally too. He's good at set pieces. He's young, he's got resale value. He looks like a bit of a Serbian killing machine. He looks hungry.
He can swim.
He's like Ivan Drago here. Look at this. He's pumping it in. He looks like potentially a leader as well on the pitch. It looks like a young Vidic, left-footed. And I like this one a lot. If this player comes on, that's exactly what we should be looking for. The right age. If he develops, he looks combative. There's a potentially an absolute yes for me.
Do we know why?
I mean, it's like historically, it's interesting. It looked like he was available on the market. And then because of an injury, he played in the Champions League and he actually played really well in the Champions League. And apparently because of that, they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't get rid of him so quickly. But at the moment, he's down in a pecking order based on the players that they have. Milan also did change their manager this season as well. So maybe it's not what that was Fonseca particularly wanted. I would say, as always with Leicester, you're not going to be signing a player who's like at the top of their game right away in the Premier League based on where we are. There's going to be some sort of reason why they're available. And for me, I would say, happens to a lot of players, you go to the big club too early when you need to spend a bit more time at a mid-table club to prove that you've got it. It's a bit like if Bilal El Khanous went straight to Man City, he would probably not make the grade. But going to Leicester for a few seasons is probably the smartest thing he can do because he can show that he's good and play on there. So yeah, I mean, whilst you're talking there, just to kind of back up the point I've got here, let me just go to the next slide that I've got here. Yeah. So yeah, looking at the data, so you can see here that in terms of like the stats, they're pretty impressive. A lot for the attacking, but you can see the defensive work and can do the tackles. But I think this is the one that might be really useful. Is I did a comparison with Yannick Vestergaard, and this is the reason why I really think I actually would go as far as saying I think this would be a transformative signing because essentially we've got a player who's good, but it's got one massive weakness, if not two. The one weakness is, of course, his pace. The second one, I would also say, for a big guy, Vestergaard's actually not that good in his aerials. This guy, I think, is just the upgraded, younger, better version, and he's left-footed. And we've conceded so many goals, even though we've just won the game, we conceded again. Where did we concede off? We actually conceded off a cross, didn't we? Right. So again, having that person is there. So if it was me, I actually think, it's funny, right at the start of the window, some of us did a show and we were talking about it. And I was saying we need to go big or go hard or go home. But I didn't even think a player like this was available on the market. So the fact that it is, I'm surprised no one else has gone for him. But to be fair, a lot of people are saying we're probably not going to get a player like this. But if it's possible, I would do the deal immediately.
Go on, Josh. Talk to his mate, Strahinja Pavlovic. It's we're aiming for the stars, I think, with this one. I think, like I said, somebody made a really good point in the chat. They said, I think it was Clibbo, we need the level above, or we go down. Simple as that. And I think this is one of them, isn't it, Josh? That he does look on paper to be too good for us, but it's what we probably need.
Yeah, exactly. I say, why not? We might as well try it. I just think everything about him in terms of just what we watched, I think it's exactly what we need. Obviously, there's going to be an element of an inexperience around him, but even just playing for a team like AC Milan, I think we spoke about it the other week. Van Nistelrooy is obviously coming from the background of these massive high standards. And if we can sign players who have got experience or bits of experience on playing for these massive clubs with the pressure on them, I think little things like that can help us as well, especially in our situation in terms of the relegation battle. And obviously, in terms of his footballing ability and whatnot, it looks fantastic. In my opinion, it's exactly what we need. He looks to be very comfortable on the ball as well, which is obviously a bit of our part in terms of what Faz obviously likes to come forward a bit as well, so we can compliment him. But I think overall, he looks like a leader. There's no nonsense. He reminds me a bit of Johan Van, just flying into tackles. And I think that's what we need, though, at this point of the season. Like, I think we did show that against Tottenham towards the end. There's a bit more grit about us, which I think helped us get over the line. And I think for everything, really, I just think if we can sign a very good centre back who can play for us for the rest of the season, and then obviously from then you've got the selling value, etc. And yeah, I just think it'd be an ideal move in my opinion. It looks like Leicester aren't going to be signing many players, so we might as well just go for it. And then if we can find a few loans, do it.
Yeah, that video that was in the compilation of him punching the floor, that was because he won the ball back. He got a cross into the box, and the striker didn't score, and he's fuming. You know what I mean? We need a bit of that, I think, in the squad. Anil, talk to me a bit. How unrealistic is this? Because we heard a couple of weeks ago or last week that apparently Leicester City had representatives in Milan to speak to him. Do you think it's likely? Do you think it's near impossible? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's unrealistic, and I'll explain to you why. They signed him for 15 million euros in the summer, and it being the Premier League tax, they could probably sell him to us for 20 to 25, so making instant profit. And I think for us, you always pay a Premier League tax on anyone you buy, Oliver Skip. So you just have to accept that. Look at the sort of prices Manchester United pay. So it could be a move where it benefits everyone. They make a profit. We get a player that we desperately need. The player plays. The Premier League is still the league to be. I think it could also be structured with a loan with an obligation if we stay up. So if we don't stay up, he goes back to Milan. What's not there to like? All we need to cover the loan fees and the wages. I think the difference is if he wants to fight for his place. And I think, to be fair, looking at his personality there, he looks like the sort of player that probably would want to fight for his place. But at the same time, if his agent says to him, look, you're going to be starting every single week, you're going to be putting yourself in the shop window, and Premier League, you're going to play for Liverpool, Man City, whatever, that's the way that you're going to get in. I could see it happening. And I think here's the thing that people don't realize, which is that the reason why the Premier League has become so strong in recent seasons is that even teams that finish in the bottom three get more prize money than the team that wins Serie A. So that's why teams like Milan have fallen away, and teams like Crystal Palace can buy the sort of players that normally a Milan would sign. So it's not impossible. We could definitely match the wages. I think it is, but the fact that it hasn't happened, I feel that like if he really was available, us or someone would have pulled the trigger. But I'm going to say it again, like I think a signing like this would keep you up. That's how good a signing it could be, because it's a clear weakness. We conceded goals all season long, one clean sheet, got to fix the defense. This guy's the dream in terms of everything you could ask for. So I would make the signing.
I'm guessing it's a sign from everybody here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
This is why you don't waste a loan option on Chuba Akpom, because put yourself in a position of a player who's got lots of offers. Realistically, you're going to be partly worried about potentially Championship football next season. You would be. So maybe a loan with an option might be the way that you would like to go. That's the way you can attract a player of a higher caliber. So you've got to be very selective about the kind of player you use for that loan. And maybe someone like Pavlovic wouldn't be ready to come for a permanent just now, but a loan, if we stay up, might excite him and we can achieve that signing.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Up next, NNL, who have you got for us, mate? Who have you got?
Wow. Next on the shopping list is a player that we all know only too well because he scored a goal against us recently, didn't he? It is Tariq Lamptey. Now, for you don't know, well, I'll tell you what, let's go to. So let's just get this out of the way right away. Why would Lamptey even be available? Tariq Lamptey has a horrendous record with injuries. Absolutely horrendous. It makes some of the Leicester City players like James Justin look positively injury-free by comparison. This season, not too bad. He's only missed 2 games, but you can see last season, he missed 23 games. The season before that, he missed 19 games. In 2020-21, he missed 50 games. So he misses a lot of games. And he's got sort of recurring injuries. It seems to be either hamstrings or muscle injuries. I think he had a very serious injury of his knee, which is, less that he could do with it. But in terms of what he can bring to the table, I compared him with the obvious player in our team. And again, a little bit about how I compared Pavlovic to Vestergaard. Here you've got James Justin compared to Tariq Lamptey. And you can see that pretty much he's just better at everything. Maybe not so much on the defensive side, but then he's playing for a team that attacks more. So, he's got that. And I think whilst we discuss him, we'll save that one for a bit. I will bring up a video. I think we'll get away with this. So let me just have this on screen. This, I think, is from the previous season, but we'll still be able to see what he's up to in his career. So, yeah, I'll pass it around to the rest of the team. You can see what Tariq Lamptey is all about.
Manny, this was one that you, you rate this guy, of course.
Just the deal excites me for the option that he's 6 months to go, so he's available at a subsidised price. When this lad was at Chelsea, and I think his debut was under Lampard, I think this guy was electric. Probably the fastest fullback in the Premier League, clearly, I would say, absolutely. And when he first got to Brighton, he was on total fire for about his first 10, 15 games, and then he got his first injury. And since that first serious injury, he's never been the same player. It's unfortunate, but we've seen it in the history of football, haven't we? Michael Owen, Fernando Torres. If you're a player that relies on pace and you have hamstring injuries in particular, you're never quite the same speed. However, he's still a good footballer. Even though he's not top level speed that he did have before, where he was going to be a £50 million fullback if he maintained that, he's still an excellent footballer available at a good price. My issue is, we've just signed a fullback and we've got another one in Ricardo who's coming back. So we're going to end up with 4 fullbacks, or 4 fullbacks and a wing back. But with JJ or Ricky can play wing back too. So I don't really know where he fits in. Although as a value proposition, which is I always judge my transfers on too, for the money that you're going to pay and the fact, don't forget, he's Ghanaian international. So he'll have a connection with Fatawu, he'll have a connection with Jordan Ayew. So likelihood is he'll settle in well. But jumping forward, that Ricardo might not be the same player. Woyo, we still don't know. We might be going down. We might be staying up. For the price that we're likely to pay, it seems like a smart piece of business.
Yeah, Josh, obviously this one came out a few days ago, and then Alex Crook from TalkSport said he understands that it's wide of the mark, the rumours linking us. I don't know if, sometimes you hear transfer rumours that very early on in the window, and we decided to opt for Woyo instead. But overall, mate, on Lamptey, what would you make to this one if we were to sign him? Because it sounds like if we were to get him, it would be permanent because of a cheaper price because his contract expires in 6 months.
I think the deal has a lot of risk in terms of his injury and whatnot. But like Manny was saying, if we can get him for a cheap price of his contract, I think the time down, especially if we do go down, you can have a good player on your hands as well, and you're likely to be able to get a good resale value as long as you give him a decent contract. So I think there is risk, obviously, just like we said, in terms of the injury and bringing in Jasigo's, pull the clips here. I remember he made his Brighton debut against Leicester in lockdown. I thought, we'll be in with Barnes or Perez, whoever we had a storming game. So I think there's a fantastic player in there. Look, he progresses down the right-hand side well. I think that's a big thing we have been lacking in recent weeks in terms of James Justin, especially. So yeah, I think it's probably a risk worth taking. And if we can get him for free, for a cheap price, there's no reason why we should go for it, in my opinion. Yes, we've got options at fullback. Obviously, there's been talk about Luke Thomas going to Hoffenheim, so there's a potential space there. But I think overall, you into the team and compete. So yeah, and even if Ricardo's coming back, there's probably likely that we're going to get some sort of injury from another fullback as well. So I don't see no problem in terms of the depth and whatnot.
Anil, I mean, Manny and Josh are right. Like if we signed him, for example, and Ricardo comes back, we could go from having one fit right back to 4 fit right backs in the space of a month. So what are you saying with this one, mate? Sign or avoid?
I could probably write an entire novel about this one. I'll say one thing was interesting, because you're seeing some of his games here from his youth career as well. He actually played as a winger sometimes as well. He's even played that for Brighton. So that's like another option that is, not necessarily available. He scored the goal against us, by the way, with his left foot. He cut in onto his left foot and top quality finish. He scored a few goals in these clips with his left foot. He's fast as fuck as well. Here's the thing, right? I think in terms of a player, there's absolutely no doubt about it whatsoever. He's top quality. He could play for anyone, in my opinion, but the injury record is horrendous. And I do think it would be a bit reckless to sign someone on that, right? Especially given that we've already got 2 other fullbacks that have pretty awful injury records. However, there's a few things that are in my mind. In my opinion, I would be surprised if Ricardo is still here next season. And I think that's regardless of the division we're in. I think that's because if you look at just where he is in his career, he probably needs one more contract, and I don't think we're going to give him one, despite all the stuff that he's done, which is well. So I think that's likely going to be an issue. So in that case, it could be the case that we're signing someone for a position that we're going to need to fill regardless of what the division we're in next season. So that makes him a bit more interesting. If it's also a case that we only get him on loan and you can take the risk, then again, perhaps that's something that you could look into. So that's where I'm kind of being. I think, though, the problem is, knowing Leicester, is what they would actually do is they would sign him, then would get to the summer, and then Ricardo wouldn't go, but he'd be injured, and we'd be sitting on about 4 injured fullbacks on the combined wages of about 200 grand a week, and we'd still be loaning Luke Thomas back from wherever we've sold him to, from Hoffenheim, to fill in and play. That's the kind of thing that it is. But in terms of the player, nothing to do there. So it's a complex one. But I think if you were trying to take emotion out of it, I would probably say it's a bit of a reckless signing to make. But if he's good in a run-in, maybe that's all you care about.
So is that an avoid?
I would go, given our current... Well, we've just signed Woyo Koulibaly. So I think because of that, I would say avoid. Purely because if we hadn't done, we should have got Lamptey instead. But otherwise, I feel their profiles are too similar. So I don't really see why we need another one. I think we are going to get someone. Even though I said he could play wing, I would sign someone who's actually a winger. And also, you have to call it out. He's fast, but he's short. And in the current Premier League, like our team, we've got too many short asses. Like, look at how Harry Winks doesn't really affect the game compared to Ndidi, because we're not having that much possession. So we need those players that can win the ball. That's what Soumari's given us. So I think on that case, that's another con. So I'd say avoid. I won't sit on the fence on this one. I'd say avoid. Josh,
sign or avoid Tariq Lamptey, mate?
I would sign him. There's a lot of ifs about it. The injury's a price, but overall, I just want some good players to be honest. And you obviously signed Koulibaly, but I think it's still a big unknown about how he's going to impact the squad and whatnot. Obviously, we'll learn about that in the next couple of weeks. But in my opinion, I think we're just crying out for some depth, and I think some like attacking talent just down that right hand side. Because in recent weeks, when Benanotti's been out there and Justin's been there, we've just seemed to have no real threat down the right hand side. So I think it's imperative we have a fullback who can get forward. I know Koulibaly could be the option, but I still think he's a bit too young and a bit too raw to be that main man for the last 6 months. So I'd sign him, yeah.
Before I come to you, Manny, I was just going to say that, like, I suppose it comes down to whether or not this is going to take focus away from a different position in the window. Because if we're going to be sat here with a striker and a winger, and or a striker and a centre back, and Tariq Lamptey, then I would say, yeah, 100%, get him in, because it's added quality. He improves the squad. He improves the first team, when he's fit. But for now, just because it doesn't look like we're going to get any other side, if it meant that it was going to take something away from other areas, I would say avoid. What about you, Manny?
This guy's gonna. I would expect it to cost something like £3 to £5 million, right? Somewhere in that mark. They paid £1.5
Really?
million. They paid £1.5 million for him. He's got 6 months to go. They're going to lose him for nothing, if nobody signs him by the end of January. Brighton aren't daft. They'll take £3 to £5 million for an asset they're going to lose for nothing. That it doesn't regularly play for them. By the way, with restricted minutes this year, he has got 2 goals and 2 assists. And the way that I would justify this signing is look at it as a squad overall. So what I would do is take £5 million for Luke Thomas, put James Justin as your reserve left back slot in terms of the squad positioning, put Tariq Lamptey as your right back, and in terms of the cash, it's almost a direct swap. The wages might be a little bit higher for Tariq, fair enough, but you're getting a better player than Luke Thomas for exactly the same money. That's how I would look at it.
So is that a sign?
Sign. If it's
Okay.
if it's 5 million or less, sign.
Okay. Let's just see what a couple of people are saying in the chat. Ethan says Lamptey avoid injury risk is too high. I think we would end up waiting until summer for that. I mean, that's a shout. You know, if we stay up, he is available on a free in the summer. Maybe it's something the club will look to make then. It's just obviously whether he would improve our chances of staying up for the time being. LCFC Forever said made one signing for him to be a second choice left back, right back. I think he's on about Woyo, but he was £3 million. If Woyo ends up being just a purely squad player, £3 million is, I mean, that's how much squad players cost, right? You're not going to get, you know what I mean? So, and then Ragsy says Ricky would stay in his last year, I reckon, and go on a free. So don't panic buy a fullback for an inevitability that we're not desperate to address. Just focus on the positions we need. All right, then let's move on to the next one. This is going to be an interesting one. This might cause a bit of debate in the chat. Go on, Anil, take us away, mate.
Wow, it's a very well-known player in the Premier League. At one point, he was a wonder kid, wasn't he? Signed from Southampton to Arsenal by Arsene Wenger. It's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. But currently, he's actually at Besiktas in Turkey. And he's actually out of favour there and potentially, I guess, a bit homesick and looking for a move back. So we've got a small video. I thought to keep it relevant rather than going through the Premier League yesterday. Let's have a look at the goals he scored for Besiktas. So you can say, not a bad one to start us off there.
What role has he been playing in Turkey, mate?
Bench warmer. But to be more accurate, like always, is sometimes on the wing, but more often as a kind of roving 8, number 10 that can sort of drift around. I would say he's not that dissimilar actually to the way that we use Bobby. Well, there he's just gone all the way through the middle. That was always his sort of preferred position. But, you know, at Liverpool, he was used in the middle of the 4-3-3. Sometimes he was tried in the sort of attacking part, but he was less good there. You can see, look, one of his goals is a pen, so not necessarily the best. But there you go. That's him. I think. Let me see if I've got anything else on the Ox. No, I don't. That's all I've got from him. Because the problem is with the Turkish league is compared to other ones, I can't really see like what data he is, where is he performing. I say what I will bring up whilst you guys talk about him. I'll bring up from like who scored, like how many appearances he's made, etc., etc. But I think he's only made a handful of appearances this season.
I know straight away what Manny is going to say about this one. So go on, mate. Take it away.
Avoid. 1,000 times avoid. Stop living in the past, thinking about has-beens who have been on a jolly in Turkey, taking their money. This guy's interested in maximising the paydays of his career. He's not interested in fighting in a relegation battle. His hunger is inevitably going to be less. He's not trying to prove anything in his career at this stage. He's done his career. He's on the back end of it. This whole experienced misnomer. We have experience in our team. It's not doing the best at the moment. Focus on the next player for tomorrow. Stop living from yesterday. His contract, his salary in particular, is likely to be huge. This guy's not coming for less than 80, 90, 100 a week. That's the reality. You know, these are the mistakes that we need to avoid. This is what ends you up in PSL problems. Do anyone remember Ryan Bertrand? Hello? Ryan Bertrand, but in midfield. I mean, same thing. You know, he's on a big fat contract. He's available. It looks like... Avoid. I mean, just... What do we need him for? Where's he going to play as well? You could say he could play here, there and everywhere. It's because he's never, ever nailed down one position in his career because he's never been excellent enough at one particular position. Don't get me wrong. In his day, he was a damn good player. He really was. But that's the point. In his day, He's 31. His day has long since gone. That's why he's been sitting there at Besiktas doing nothing for a few years.
There we go. Manny feels very strongly about that. And to be fair, the chat are in complete agreement. I mean, Josh, Manny says something quite obvious there, which was that, I mean, he can't start, or he struggles to start in Turkey. How can you expect him to come and have the fight and want to in a relegation battle, mate? I mean, it's just not the type of player we really need, is it?
No, I think it'd be a stupid move in my opinion. And the worst thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if Leicester actually did it, which is frustrating. But just like Manny said, for starters, where's he going to play in our system? I think midfield, that kind of area is probably our strongest position in the whole team. He's 31 as well. I thought he was older than that. So he's in Turkey. He's been on the bench. It just seems it'd just be a stupid signing. It's the type of signing you make like a few years ago for like Norwich or something, right down there with poor midfielders. But we've got a good area midfield, so we've got other loans to use in different positions. It would just be a strange signing. And I think obviously just like we said, he's going to be interested in moving back to England. Reminds me of kind of like Aaron Ramsey, who go back to Cardiff or some random team like that. So just avoid him at all costs. In my opinion, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, maybe he goes back to Southampton next season when they're in the Championship. Who knows? Anil, I mean, Josh is bang on, isn't he? This is the position, because we've been linked with a couple of midfielders this window, and we're kind of looking at like, why? We don't need midfielders, surely.
Well, to be fair, he can play out on the wing as well, and it looks like we like the versatility. But I mean, I just brought it up there before. But if you look at his record recently, so he's only made 6 appearances this season, 4 from the bench. Last season, just 20 in total. And previously at Liverpool, he's hardly making any appearances. You got someone who hasn't really been used to a lot of appearances in a long time. And with how physical the Premier League is, you need someone to come in and be able to be part of that physical battle right away. So I would also say as well is that because the Ox, I think, was in Southampton's first team, even at 17 or something like that, he's having a bit of the Rooney effect where some of those players, they break down a lot quicker than other ones. Like Vardy's been able to go for so long, but his career didn't start till 23. He didn't get into the Premier League till 28. Whereas some of these other players that start really young, they actually end up in this position where they're just completely crocked by the time they get to this age. And I think he shows all the signs of it. So, I mean, it's got to be a big time avoid. But I mean, as Josh says, it's one of those fearful ones that you could see, coming. But I don't know. I mean, he is one of those players that he can produce a moment of magic. He absolutely can. I'm pretty sure he scored against us, but I think he's yesterday's man, and he's not the answer for today, yet alone tomorrow.
I think the most factual thing that's been said on this player was what Josh said. It's that stupid that Leicester would probably do it, and I think that's spot on. To be honest with you, mate.
There's a point I just want to make about these players, right? Neil just hit it on the head there. When you start really young in the Premier League, 16, I think it was his debut, and you're playing at 17, 18, you're playing a lot of games. I think he played like 40 odd games when he was 17, in the Premier League, combined with all the other tournaments that he was in. But there is an age factor. It's about mileage.
Mike, a bit closer, man.
So it's about mileage. It's not about age. So he's not 31. In football terms, he's 41. Because you get about 15 seasons that you can really potentially compete. And by season 10, you're starting to fade physically as is. And we've seen that with his injury record at Liverpool, Besiktas. This guy doesn't play regularly. How can he walk into the hyper speed of the Premier League and be effective? It's not going to be possible. And you're paying 80, 100 grand a week for the privilege. Absolutely avoid.
Yeah, I think no more discussion needed on the Ox. I think we're all saying avoid. Now, we're about to head over to the last player, and I will let Anil introduce him, but I know the first person who wants to speak about him is Manny. So, before we get to Manny, Anil, introduce him, mate.
I'm not even sure I can pronounce this guy name. I think it's Cyriaque Irié. Completely butchered that, I'm sure. Now, here's an interesting player. He's a winger. He predominantly plays on the right wing, but you'll see in the clips that he can play on the left wing too. But he plays in Ligue 2 in France, Ligue 2, for Troyes. So let's take a look at him. There's some clips from actually this season. So I think that's important. But I think there's a lot to like from these videos. I mean, obviously, the big thing is this is a player who literally hasn't played top flight football in any league. Right, I think he's 19 years old. I think he's from Burkina Faso or Burkinabe. I think they say that is. Let's take a look. Of course, you're getting all the probably the hype right winger. Good forward pass there.
Can I just say something here?
Yeah.
When you're doing data analysis as part of your scouting department, it's my contention that there's a subset of the data that are particularly important for each individual position on the pitch. And when you're looking for a winger, the attributes that you should focus on: touch, control, ability to dribble, pace, and then you look at passing, distribution, and then finally shooting. But the hardest thing to do is control a ball, keep it close to your feet, just like he is, like Riyad Mahrez used to, and then be able to distribute, because you will attract attention towards you. And then before somebody can get to you, you have the ability to move the ball onwards. This is a line-breaking player, a guy who can beat the first line and get into open air. After that, who knows? Maybe he's like, there's no end product at the end of it. But the guy has raw capabilities. He's 19 years old. And don't worry about League Two. That's like Championship of here. There's half decent. Elise came from the Championship. Eze came from the Championship. And this is the French equivalent. And don't forget, Mahrez and Kante came from League Two as well. So
I was going to say that. I was going to say that because Dexter says we don't want another Diabate. No, but we do want another Mahrez, who also came from the second division of France, of course. Yeah, I mean, Josh, none of us really know too much about this player, but, I'm sure you've done a little bit of research and you're seeing it here in front of your eyes. I mean, what do you make to this one? Is this the type of player you think we might need to not only get fans off their seats, but, to inject a little bit of excitement and energy into the games?
Yeah, he does give me a bit of Fattery vibes. Obviously, it's going to be a massive gamble on this type of player, and I don't think he's going to be the type of player who's going to come in this tight in the next 6 months and probably score loads of goals to keep Leicester up. But it's one for the long term. He's young. He looks excited, and just like Manny said, he looks to have the attributes to potentially be a solid winger going forward. So yeah, it is a slight risk. I prefer someone who's a bit more experienced, but then again, we have signed experienced players and they're not really worked out, so it's a risk. But I think this one's on a bit low of the spectrum in terms of being quite young. So yeah, it's one of them really, but he looks to be excited, and he's just like I said, he's one of the type of players who will be able to get you off the seat. He's comfortable on the ball, he likes to beat his man, and his passing ability and whatnot, and finding the pass at the right time does look pretty good based upon these videos as well. So yeah, potential one for the future, but just like I said, I think we need to get someone who's a bit more experienced.
Well, Anil, I'm going to start a little mini debate off here because Manny disagrees with us. He will disagree with all three of us about experience and about players needing time to settle in. And what Dexter says, for example, experienced players between 26 and 32 is what we need. I mean, what is your take on this then, Anil? Because Manny is very much the opinion that, well, the experience hasn't really worked, has it? I mean, Jordan Ayew, yes, he's of course got some goal contributions and he's contributed more than other players, but him, Deco Dover-Reed, although he got 2 assists on the weekend, so you could say it's working right now. But yeah, Manny thinks that this is the type of player we should be looking at, with 1, resale value, but 2, fast twitch fibers, quick, energetic, trickery, all of this stuff. What do you think, Adele?
Generally, I agree with Manny, but I think we have to be reticent of this, where we are in Leicester's history and league. This is possibly one of the most, what happens this season is going to have consequences for many years to come, right? So are you going to bet that on a player who's in League Two? He scored 4 goals this season in League Two. So it's not like he's the star player in League Two smashing it and all the top clubs want him. You can see why a team would want him, right? I think another thing we haven't mentioned is he's strong and he's powerful. There's a lot of clips of them playing long balls to him. He's holding it up, he's keeping it down, and he's playing other people in. So that's very good, right? So he would be able to do that sort of thing. But it's like, I'll give you an example. We're about to play Everton this weekend. And so we're doing a match preview at the moment. We've got the prep for it. And the last time that we played Everton was Bilal El Khanousi's debut. And he had an absolute stinker that game. I would actually go as far as saying that we didn't even start playing football for 60 minutes, which, by the way, was the 60 minutes that he was on the pitch. Now, of course, in recent weeks, he's emerged as the star man in the team. But for where we are right now, can you afford to sign someone who might be good after 10 games or more likely a season getting used to the speed of the English game, or do you need a player who can come in right away and do something? So I think it's one of those that this is the sort of player that we should have signed in the summer, if you ask me, right? Because then he would have been the understudy to Mavididi and Fatawu. He could have been coming off the bench, getting 10, 15 minutes here and there, an upgrade to Casey McAteer, you could say, right? That had a much higher ceiling. But I think for here and now, it would be a massive gamble. And I'd even say that Mahrez himself, if you remember, he came in and initially it was Knockout who was ahead of him in the team, right? Who is a legend for Leicester. There's not many people that have a bad word to say about Anthony Knockout, but eventually the class proved it. He got used to the game, and the rest, as they say, is history. But he didn't just go into the team right away. So for me, it's one of those that I would have signed him either this summer or the summer that's coming up. But I feel like in the January window, it seems like a big gamble to me. But if there's no other, where we are right now, though, I'd rather we sign people than not sign them. So that's where I'm sort of sitting there. But it looks like full of potential.
Go on, Manny. I mean, because what Anil said is, even if it's not a year or 2 years it takes for a player to settle in, it does take a little bit of time. I mean, El Khanous, probably not until Rude came in, right, where he actually started to flourish.
Can you afford 3 games, Locks? We've got 15 left.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just to add one more thing to it, sorry, mate, is that even you look at Fatawu, right? The numbers didn't start for Fatawu until probably halfway through the season. It did take him also a little bit of time.
Or playing in a defensive style, under a defensive manager, and half the time not starting themselves. No consistency in selection, no consistency in style or application. They didn't know what they were doing week on week. We all said every week, the players don't know what they're doing. With clear instruction, clear ability, youth is the way forward. And to illustrate that point, let's look at some teams in the Premier League. Southampton, who's their best player this season? Tyler Dibbling. How much Premier League experience did he have before the season? 0. Ipswich, who's their best player? Liam Delap. How much Premier League experience, or even experience last year? He stank it out for Hull. Brilliant this season. Let's look at some others. Wolves, Cunha. Not lots of Premier League experience. Taken a few years to get, granted. There's one that took a few years. Look at other teams. Man United, they've spent £1 billion on players. Who's their best player this season? Amad Diallo, 19, 20 years old, skinny as a rake, lighting the Premier League on fire week on week because the guy has pace and technical ability. He has the attributes you're looking for. Focus on the attributes, not the club that he's playing for or the number of goals that he's made. It's about what the player can do in the right environment, playing to the strengths. Beyond that, let's go to Brentford. Mbuemo's been playing since he was 21 in the Premier League, been brilliant for 3-4 years. Isak, young player. Man City, Haaland, young player. Everywhere, pretty much on the Premier League. It's only really Liverpool with Mo Salah and Van Dijk where experience is really serving you well. Experience is not serving you well, whether you're in a relegation battle, whether you're going for Europe, or even where you're going for, the Champions League itself. It's the best young players who are physically capable enough of handling it. And that's the question. It's not it means every young player will be suited. Can they handle the physicality of the Premier League? And that doesn't mean you have to be, an absolute monster physically. You don't have to be Yaya Toure. N'Golo Kante was tiny as anything, but he could handle the physicality of the Premier League because he had the right attributes almost to avoid those kind of challenges and put himself in danger. So don't worry about youth. Our best players this season are young players. The best players last season were young players. Also, young players have resale value. It's part of our business model. It makes sense to invest and develop youth. That's what Brighton do, sprinkled with a smidgen, 2 or 3 experienced players to complement them and guide them through. And players like Mark Albrighton, who we don't have this season, have a use off the pitch kind of thing. But youth is the way forward, and they're also faster. So I like it. I
mean, just before I come to you, Josh, Anil, my problem with some of and I've already had this for Manny today. We've already spoken about it. But my problem is that, some of the players he mentioned there are 50, 60 million pound players, like elite level signings, even at their young age. Isak, Haaland, some of these players are, there's a reason that they went for that much money is because they're maybe outliers, but the Diallos that he mentioned, he's been, and Delap, right? And Dibbling, yes, they haven't had loads of Premier League experience, but they've been in the English game all of their lives. So that's why I think Manny's logic is not flawed, but it has, a few little holes with it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I said it before. in general, I do agree with Manny, but I mean, we could literally be in a point like at the end of the season where we either stay up or go down because in one game someone missed a penalty or scored it, or someone took that chance or didn't take it. I think it's interesting that with Koulibaly, when they signed him, Ruud said, because he's 26, he's in the prime of his career right now, whereas this is a player who's not there. So look, it could look, like I said, this is a sort of signing that are the ones that Leicester, when we do well, is because we sign a player like this. It's a young, up-and-coming prospect. We develop them, and then one of the top teams buys them for 40 to 60 million pounds. That should be the model, and we should have got more players like this in the summer rather than some of the granddads that we did get. But I just think we've given the market right now, the best thing you could... I know we're not going to get him, but for example, if there was a choice of getting this player or Wilfried Zaha, for where we are right now in the league, I would choose Zaha, right? That's sort of where my stance is. But in like I say, in general, I agree with Manny, but I'm just looking at the table. 15 games to go. We're right on the cusp. It's probably going to go down to the last day. So, it would be a big gamble. But look, I will say if it's the only choice available, I will still say he should fit the profile of the squad.
Josh, what do you think to this particular topic, mate? Because again, similarly to Anil, my whole mindset is that the focus should not be resale value in January. The players you bring in January should not be, okay, we're going to sign this guy because in 2-3 years he could be worth 40-50 million. For me, it has to be, okay, we're going to sign this guy because he's going to make an instant impact. He's going to be able to help us stay in the Premier League with only, how many games do we have left? 15 games or something like that. So what's your thoughts on it, Josh?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to circumstances, really. I won't be against the signing at all. I think he's an exciting player, but signing a player like this at 19, yes, he looks good from this, and he's got good attributes and whatnot. But I just don't think he's a type of player to come in and solve our issues. And in limited games, is there much point of really signing someone like this? I know he can have success in the long term, but for me, the long term is these next 6 months for Leicester. But if we get relegated, I think, this transfer window, this 6 months period, we'll remember it for the next decade or so. I think the consequences will be that bad. So
yeah,
I think it's imperative that we get the business right. And we could sign this guy and he could have massive resale value, just like I've been saying. He looks like a good, exciting player. But for me, I just think we need, when I say experience, I don't mean the likes of Ayew and Declan Irié. I just mean that kind of next level up with a bit more pedigree. Obviously, Bilal, El Khanous, when we signed him, I think there's a bit more known about him. I just, someone a bit more like that, who we know a bit more about, who's had a bit more experience, because yes, he looks good playing at this level, but when he's playing in front of big Premier League crowds and he's never dealt with that before in the relegation battle, I think there's a lot more around that in terms of the environment and whatnot as well. But, let's say Leicester do sign Pavlovic and we get this guy. I'm not going to say no, but I just think we need to be a bit more careful with the top players we get.
So what are we all saying for this one then? Sign or avoid, Anil?
I'll say avoid, but it's one of those that sounds harsh because I would sign him under the right circumstances, but avoid.
Manny?
Hey, look, if you haven't seen Anil and Andreas' show about the Spurs game yesterday, then you should. And there was numerous examples in that particular game where Jordan Ayew down the right couldn't quite get there. He did not have the pace to keep up with play. We missed out on 2 or 3 excellent quality chances on the transition because we did not have speed down the right wing. Without Fatawi, we don't have any speed, and McAteer is not capable technically enough of handling the ball should he get in that position, so he's not an option. This guy, if we go down, will be a fantastic player in the Championship and he'll be happy to play there. His also wages will be really, really cheap. And forget about the lack of size or experience and stuff. If I ask you guys, who are these mysterious, experience-filled wingers that we could buy to fill our right wing slot today that are going to walk in there and make a difference? We're in a relegation battle. Which teams are going to let them go to us? Who are these players? If I asked you to give me your top 3 options, I'm telling you wouldn't come up with 2 options, never mind 3.
What about Ernest Nuama?
That's not a Premier League experience. I'm saying that Premier League experience, it doesn't exist anywhere that's going to be effective. We have Premier League experience in the squad. Those are the ones that are letting us down. The Cody's, the best.
Are they though? Are they letting us down?
Have you seen our defensive record recently?
Well, De Cordova-Reid won us the game yesterday, mate, on Sunday.
Yeah.
Jordan Ayew's won us one game and got a couple points here and there from his contributions. Are they letting us down?
1 or 2 games in 23. Look,
I think
so Manny, let me just ask Manny this, right? Because my thing, Josh had a nail on the head there, right? It's because he's playing in League 2, right? So Ernest Nuama, he's only scored 4 goals this season, now 5 goals this season, but he's playing in Liga 1, right? Or Andreas, mentioned his countryman, Andreas Skov Olsen, who went to Wolfsburg from Belgium. So what I'm saying is, it's not that the player is bad. It's not that we don't need a winger, but if you can only choose one, do you go for the one that's very raw, or do you go for ones you could still sign someone who's a bit more raw? Sorry, still raw, but isn't quite as raw, if that makes sense. That's where I'm coming from. But I
totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah,
that's correct. You know, if you can find a higher caliber one from League 1, but then you're going to pay an appropriate fee. It's not going to. This guy, I think, Lens have bid €7.5 million with €2.5 million add-ons. So you're looking at 12 million quidish to make Lens not competitors anymore, and he'll come to us. So, but for Ernest Nuama, you're going to have to pay 25. So this guy's half the price of Nuama, and you're getting, you know, equivalently slightly less potential. But we have a restricted budget in this window. I don't think we've got the money for a £25 million winger. So we're looking at 10, 12 million pound wingers instead. So at the price range, it makes sense with the age, the resale value, the fact he's going to be low wages. Also, Ernest Nuama will probably want twice the wages that this guy would. So, you know, we have potentially got life in the Championship coming up soon. We have to think about things like what we pay our players moving forward. So for me, I love this kind of signing. I think somebody said it in the comments. When we were our absolute best, these are the kind of signings that we really did well at. And whether we're in the Premier League or the Championship, at some point we have to draw the line in the sand and say, enough buying players as an elastoplast for the next 6 months because we're in a relegation battle. We tried this a couple of years ago. We stop buying players who are experienced in the Championship, who are going to help us get up. Just buy the best young players we can get and develop and move on, and just have those sprinkle of old guys around. That's it.
Okay, so let's... Tom says he can do the griddy, sign him up immediately. Right. Out of all the players we've discussed tonight, lads, and everybody in the group chat, what am I talking about? Everyone in the live chat, please, if you're watching, anyone in our group chats, feel free as well. But in the live chat, let us know your number one, the one that you would put above anyone, the one you would focus on signing this window. I think I know who it's going to be, but I'll come to the boys now. And Neil, mate, who is it going to be for you?
I've said it all season long. We need a centre-back. We need a top-quality centre-back. We're conceding goals every game. I do think we need a winger, but if I could only have one, I'd go for the centre-back. So it'd be Pavlovic, and if not him, someone of a very similar profile.
Manny, who are you picking, mate? Even though you love the look of this Cyriaque guy. I mean,
J'aime beaucoup Cyriaque Irié. Allez. I love him a lot. Don't get me wrong. But I agree with Neil as well. Pavlovic looks like a fantastic centre-back. 6'4", young, strong, experienced. It's going to cost. That's the problem. But if we have that budget, I would rather sign 2 bits of quality than 5 bits of meh. So I would take the young right winger, Monsieur Irié, and Pavlovic centre-back.
You sure you don't want Oxlade-Chamberlain, Manny?
Definitely no one Oxlade-Chamberlain. No chance, mate.
Josh, who are you going with, mate?
Yeah, Pavlovic. Look, if Leicester are going to stay up this season, it's going to be built on a good back line, isn't it? So I think, you know, it looks like we're not going to sign many players at all. So, you know what? Rate the bank. We've done so much in recent years. I try and stay in lines with PSR, and it's not working, is it? So we might as well just go for it now. Try and get him in and just see what happens. And yeah, I just think plan for the next 6 months and go from there. Just stay up.
Yeah, it's a full house. I'm going to say Pavlovic as well. Let's see what the people in the chat are saying. So banter with Brady says Pavlo. A poll. I don't think we need the poll. Other than Dexter, who says Tariq Lamptey, most people are saying Pavlovic. So Planet Earth says Pavlovic. Sean says Irié or Pavlovic. Andreas, Pavlovic. Mark going the same. Scott agrees with you, though, Dexter. He would like to see Lamptey in. Kunal says Pavlovic. Ragsy says Pavlovic. And there was one more here. Somebody said something different. LCFC Isaac says Akpom if possible. Okay, then. Well, that's it. That's it. We have 6 days. 6 days left of the transfer window. So we've got... it's not the end of transfer content. We are going to have a special live stream on deadline day from Manny. Go on, you probably know better than me, mate. What time's the deadline day, mate? Stream?
I think we the deadline is 11 o'clock, I think, isn't it, UK time? But obviously it takes like another up to an hour for the news to filter through, for those last minute, Adrian Silva deals that we missed by 14 seconds. So we're thinking about, if the audience can handle it, 9 p.m. till midnight, and we'll cover all. I know it's a tough long one, but we're committed here at Brilliant Tinted Glasses, and it's transfer deadline day. There's so many things to talk about.
Yeah, we've got some people who have signed up to come and say hello. Josh, I think, is one of them. He said he's gonna turn up and say hello. And just as well, a bit of Chips magic, if you know Chips, the nice, great, amazing designer on Boutique Glass, the graphic designer. Here we go. He's put Pavlovic. I told him, make sure you put Pavlovic on that thumbnail. So there he goes. Dak is there because he was linked with a little move to New York Red Bulls. So yeah, here he is. What a guy. Okay, thanks to the 430 people who have been
just
here
before we go, Locks.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask two things. One, I tell you what, everyone in chat, after this video's ended, go in the comments and you tell us who is the player you most want us to sign. Leave that in the comments. Yeah. And also let us know what you think about this format. So we tried something a bit different, watching some clips of players together. Is it good, bad? What do you think? More Manny, or do you think he's an OAP that needs to go? No, joking. Manny's here. What do you make of the lineup? We're always trying to improve the channel. So let us know what you think. And show Chip some love as well. He is the artist, of course, behind the magic. Yeah, just get involved, subscribe, and like if you haven't already. And
boys, come on, not one word about the Ruud van Nistelrooy Ragsy turtleneck.
You're like three months late to that.
Ik vind dit prachtig. That's how. I believe that's what you would say in Holland.
Yeah. What I will say as well, by the way, is if you are bored and you still want some content this evening, then go and check out the match analysis that Anil and Doc did last night. Go and check that out, and then also after that, go and check Josh's match day vlog, Sports YT. Go and look at that because again, it was Josh, it's only 3 wins this season, right? 4? Yeah. How many times have we won this season?
4.
3 or 4?
4. Yeah, 4.
So there we go. So only 4 like happy vlogs. Although
can I quickly ask Josh, what's been your favourite win so far?
Ooh. From an away day point of view, I'd say Southampton because it was utter carnage in the away end. I dropped my camera, so yeah, I'd say that.
There we go. So yeah, go check out Sports YouTube. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to hit subscribe as well. We will have the match preview with Luke and Anil coming out tomorrow around midday. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be a pre-recorded video out on the channel. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for the kind words. Keep getting them in. We'll catch you tomorrow on the match preview. Cheers all. Bye-bye.